Issei has the hidden Longinus Deity's Annihilation, which contains the elemental dragon Svarkova. Issei's parents died in a plane crash in which he was the only survivor, and it left him horribly scarred, emotionally and physically. He must find out where he fits in with his heritage and what his parents have left him. Chapter 1 Deity's Annihilation. Issei Hyodo woke up from a dream. His dream. His nightmare. Always the same one. I wish I could just forget about it. He pondered for a moment before shaking his head and heading off to the bathroom. He walked up to the sink and washed his face to get rid of the cold sweat that the nightmare induced. As he left his face dripping, he studied his reflection in the mirror like always. He was about 6 inches too, had just not quite shoulder length, brown hair, chocolate-colored hair, and he was quite muscular. Not bodybuilder lead, but he had some muscle and abs. He would class himself as lean, if he weren't so modest. But the most striking features about him are his scars. His most prominent one would be the one reaching from just above where his heart is to his right hip, right across his chest. His whole body is littered with scars as well, some only about a couple of centimeters, to others up to 6 inches. It was the plane crash. The same one that killed his parents. The same one he had the nightmare about every night. It was the cause of so much pain in his life, physically and mentally. He was tired of looking at the outcome of the event that took his parents, and got in the shower. He just stood in the shower, letting the water fall off his body as he daydreamed about what would his life been like if he had his parents. His alarm snapped him out of his thoughts and he remembered what today was, the first day of his new school. He would be joining Ko Academy as a second year. He needed to go to school again. Despite losing his parents, he was fully capable of taking care of himself since he was just an 11-year-old child, alone since the crash. Now being 17, he was now fully experienced at living in the world. After Issei got out of the shower, he got dressed and had some breakfast, just bento, his favorite. He still remembered the first time his mother made it for him. Even though he was only an infant, he remembers it vividly. After his breakfast he got into his uniform. It fit him rather well, showing off his well-toned body. After he packed his bag full of the things the school told him he needed for class, he went on his way to school, for the first time in 5 years. Issei walked everywhere, he liked the time to think. Once he walked into the school gates, young man got nervous. He was quite shy, since he was afraid of getting close to people in case he lost them like he lost his parents. A group of girls in the distance spotted him and started to walk towards him, curious of the new boy. "You must be the new boy in our class. I'm Miyamono Katase, but you can call me Katase." The first girl greeted him. She had pink hair and pinkish brown eyes. She seemed quite energetic and Issei was quite nervous because of that reason. He wasn't used to people so happy. The next girl had brown hair, put up in a unique fashion, and dark brown eyes. She bowed to him formally. "I'm Humaru Murayama, but because you look kind, you can call me Murayama." Issei got flustered at her input. He was not used to people showing him the much respect. The last girl added her comment in as well. "Hi. I'm Yugitari Hanai. But please call me Hanai, or Han-chan. All my friends do." She finished with a peace sign beside her eye. Hanai had pale blue hair that reached her chest and light green eyes which shone like a jewel. Issei blushed heavily at the last part though. "Friend? I haven't had many friends," he confessed, rubbing the back of his head shyly. The trio looked at the young man kindly and with a small twinge of pity. Hanai reached out to his side to hold his hands, but he flinched and she stopped. When she saw this, she felt worse for the teen and kept reaching out. When she touched his hands, he avoided her eyes and gave a small blush. "It's okay, we are your friends now," she comforted him. "What's your name?" "I Issei, Hyodo Issei." "Well Issei-chan. Let's be friends, okay?" The other two looked on at the two. Sadness at him for not having many friends, but a small twinge of envy at Hanai. Issei was kind, shy and handsome. They wanted him for themselves, but quickly drowned those thoughts out, and decided to help Issei. "Let's show you where the class is. We're in the same one anyway," Katase interjected. Issei looked up at her, gave her a nod and a small, kind smile. He must have had a rough life to be this shy and introverted. "I wonder why?" she questioned silently while she started to walk away. From a certain building in the distance, a crimson-haired girl watched the confrontation with piqued interest. "Who was that boy? I know he's new, but something about him makes me want him," Rias mumbled to herself. Another girl stepped out of the shower that the room owned. The room was set as an old Victorian suite, with 2 long sofas and a large desk near the back wall. The girl walked out in nothing but a towel to wrap her slender body. She had waist-long, black hair with purple eyes and a massive bust. Era Rias. See a boy you want? I may want him first, the girl said suggestively, while biting her finger sexily. No, there's something about him Akano, it draws me to him, yet he seems shy. Maybe even emotionally damaged, Rias explained while still staring out the window at where the boy was. The girl, Akano, dropped her sexy attitude and looked at her best friend, King, in slight realization. She may need this boy, to maybe take care of him. I hope he's good enough for the task, Rias, for your sake. Line break. While Issei was traversing the corridors of the school, Issei was very uncomfortable of the amount of looks he was given. Looks of hate from some boys because he was walking with the kendo trio, others of respect for the same reason. But in the mix were looks Issei didn't understand. Longing, jealousy, even downright envy at the girls walking with this tall, handsome, shy boy. The trio was getting annoyed at the glares, especially the envy ones. They picked up the pace to get to the class. Upon arriving at the class, the bell rang, signaling the beginning of the day. Hanai told him to wait outside for the teacher to bring him into the class, and he abided to her instruction. When he heard the teacher call him, he entered the class. The second he stepped foot into the class, there was a mixed response, a look of kindness at how shy and nervous he looked, ones of lust and passion from girls as they were unconsciously drawn to him, enticing blushes from their skin. But 2 pairs of eyes from 2 certain perverts from the back were the most prominent, hatred and a killing intent. The nervous teen made his way to the front to where the teacher was indicating him. My name is Hyodo Issei, please take care of me, he said shyly. Then a moment later the class burst out in riot of how cute and handsome he was. Many were blushing and grinding their legs together unknowingly under the table. One of the perverts got pissed off and stormed up to the front in a fit of rage. You pretty boys should just die. You're not wanted here. The monkey-looking one shouted and grabbed him by his top, ripping it by accident. Gasps resonated throughout the room at the sight before them. At first they were of lust, then pity and sorrow. Issei was confused at the mood shift, so he looked down at his shirt and his eyes shot open. All of his scars were visible, allowing everyone full view of his scarred flesh. The pervert, Matsuda, let go of his shirt and tried to apologize, but Issei just ran out of the room in panic of everyone seeing him like that. He ran of the grounds in record time, not even realizing the breakneck speed at which he ran at. The young boy turned the corner and rested against the wall, catching his breath, not because of the running, but of the panic. Oh no, I have to move school, there'll be too many questions. He thought to himself. He was snapped out of his thoughts when he heard a scream. He looked around and saw a woman being mugged by a group of masked figures. He got pissed off at that. His father taught him that if he ever saw anyone in need of help, no matter the risk, help. He ran over to the group. Hey! Let her go! He shouted while running at them. The group turned around and saw Issei. They laughed before recognizing his face. He's the target Kokebiel once dead. What a coincidence we meet him here. The leader thinks to himself. He looks to his group and nods. Issei notices a slight buzz coming from the man. Then he spots something about him. His hand is glowing. The glowing grows till it becomes into a spear. What is that? Issei ponders, before it's too late. He stops running for some reason and looks to the man. The spear is gone. Issei feels a wet sensation running down his arm. He looks down at his shoulder and sees the spear lodged in his bone. Wait, it's in him. Pain flares throughout his body and his brain finally registers the spear and he falls to his knees. The man's surprised. Ha, you're still alive after that spear hitting you. You're pretty strong, for a human. He adds. He charges up another spear as his group just laughs at his comment. Issei's instincts kick in as he jumps to the side to dodge the next spear hurtling towards him. The movement sent a fresh wave of pain coursing through his body. Shit. This hurts so fucking much. What is THS? He was lost in thought for a moment. It was his demise as he didn't register the spear coming at him. Ah! He screams as the spear pierces his chest just below his heart. He fell to his knees, as all sound was drowned out as he stared at his blood-soaked hands. He needed help. Please, someone, something, lend me the strength to defeat these things. Please, 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 let me beat them, he screamed in his thoughts, thinking it would go unheard, as he slowly lost hope. Issei, he tried to locate the source of the call, but he couldn't move his body, he thought it was just his imagination. You want my help? Why yes. You want to be able to beat these fallen? Yes. You want to keep your life? Yes. What are you talking to? The man called to Issei, thinking he went crazy from blood loss. Oh, how he was wrong. Do you want to return to life? To enjoy life to its fullest? Yes. Do you want to see those girls again? Yes, I do. Then use my power, child. Don't let these people take your life away. Show them my power. Show them not to mess with my host. Balance break, elemental armor. Balance break, elemental armor. A blinding light shone throughout the street, blinding the group of muggers, fallen angels. The shout echoed around the road, shaking the ground a little bit, threatening to break the windows of nearby houses and parked cars. The fuck's going on? Why can't I see? The leader shouted at nothing. A few moments later the light died down, revealing a horror to the fallen. Where the teen used to lie, was a suit of armor. The armor was pure black with red jewels on its chest, hands and knees. The helmet had a visor which allowed nothing to be seen into it, and black wings on the back with spikes all the way up the sides. The figure took a step forward, still looking down. It looked at its hands, then looked at the group. They looked like they just saw the dead rise. In a sense, they did. Hey, ha ha, ha 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 ha. A power surge blasted from the suit, blowing the fallen angels onto their rears. Wind swirling around the teen, threatening anything to enter to be torn to shreds. Lightning cackled around the ground, snaking out around a 10 meters radius before dissipating. You dare harm my host? Don't you know WHOIAM? I am the elemental dragon Svarkova. The voice reverberated around the area. Most of the fallen didn't know who the dragon was, but the smartest one, Draki, knew of the dragon from legends. There was a dragon who controlled the elements, struck fear into the hearts of even the strongest gods, drained all the hope of those who faced it, and almost caused the end of the world. This dragon was called Svarkova. It was one of the strongest dragons in existence, behind Great Red and Ophis. Draki's face drained of all color, his heart rate increased 5-fold and his legs started shaking like mad. He got up to try and fly away, before a strong wind smacked him back to earth with a sickening crunch. His body formed a crater and his neck was bent at an unbelievable angle. The others started to panic and started to scramble up, but the lightning that was arcing along the ground grabbed them before they could make flight. You try to kill my host, then try to run off. You pissed me off. Issei reached out his arms slowly and from the tips of the gauntlets, a stream of fire was bounding towards them. The group of fallen tried desperately to get out of the electrical bounds, some even trying to tear their limbs off to get free. But to no avail. The fire spread across their body, engulfing them whole, only their screams remain. Then, silence. Issei was still for a moment, before he started to sway for a moment, then the ARR broke and he fell to the ground. I'm sorry for taking control of your body, my child, but you wouldn't be able to take the stress. Issei was already asleep and healed from being in the armor. The only thing that'll be wrong with him tomorrow will be the tiredness from using the balance break when he was that weak. But it was neat. Svarkova teleported him to his bed to rest. Sleep well, my child. End note. This is my first story, I hope you enjoy it. The idea came partly from Lord Hamaru's story Earth and Fury. He's a great writer, I highly advise checking him out, and partly from the stories Longinus, Zenith Tempest. Issei's parents died in a plane crash and he was one of the only survivors, left with scars to remind him of what he lost that day. Inside him, he has the hidden Longinus Deity's Annihilation, the dragon Svarkova. Svarkova in this story is used instead of Diedrich, and Issei is emotionally scared, and it will be hard for him to interact with people, but yes, he will be part of Ria's peerage, but with a twist. If you like where this story is going, please review it, favorite it, all that good stuff, it really helps, and I'll try to upload as much as I can, but with school it may be hard. See you in the next one. Ch1 of 19 next Chapter 2. Deity's Annihilation. First of all, reviews. Zesterios. Firstly, thank you so much. As a new author it's amazing to see so much praise this early. It's only been about 2 hours since my first chapter, so thanks again. Secondly, that's not a bad idea. I actually quite like it, so I may just add it, thanks. Indominus. Thank you very much. Again, it's amazing to have such praise early on, and here's the next. So with that out of the way, the next chapter, talking. Thoughts. Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova speaking out loud. It was the next day, a Saturday. At the scene of destruction which happened the night before, stood a man with bright, shoulder-length red hair. The man, Sirzex, the Devil King, summoned a magical circle next to his ear as a communication method. I'm here, Ajuka. Yes, it's as you thought, a sacred gear. I can't tell which though, because the only hints are scorch marks and electric burns on the ground, but the Zenith's Tempest is wielded by Michael's Dulio. No, there are no witnesses left, only a handful of fallen angel feathers and a dead girl. Yes, I have ID'd her. Her name is Ossia Argento, an Italian nun, which is strange because Rias told me that the only church is abandoned. She has a light wound, so one of the fallen killed her. Right, I'll come back now. See you there. With that last goodbye, he ended the call and shut away his circle. What monster could have created this much destruction and not be sensed after? Sirzex pondered before creating a crimson circle under him, with the Gremory crest upon it. With a flash of bright light, the devil was gone. Line break. Issei woke up with a pounding headache and aching limbs. He groaned throatily as he put great effort into sitting up. Then the voice. I see you are awake, my child. A female voice reverberated inside his head. He winced and grabbed his head at the loud intrusion on instinct, then paled as he realized it was a voice. He jumped up and spun around with great speed, gritting the pain in his body and head, but as a true fighter, he ignored it and focused at the task at hand. Where are you? Who are you? He questioned threateningly out loud. I am inside you, my new partner, the voice whispered dramatically to the boy. He spun around again, searching for any blind spots he might have missed. Stop messing, show yourself. Very well then, the voice said cryptically, before Issei passed out onto his bed from being dragged into his inner world. Line break. Rias and her peerage were in the clubhouse. Even though it was a Saturday, they were allowed into the school because the student council controlled the school, and as they were devils, the president, Sona Shitori, allowed the Gremories access. They were called in on emergency. There has been an attack in Ko. Last night, 5 fallen angels were killed by someone, or something. Rias announced to her group. It consisted of 4 people. Rias Gremory, the king, Akano Hamejima, the queen, Kiba Yuto, the knight, and Kaneko Taju, the rook. Kiba had blonde hair, gray eyes and a mole under his left eye. He was quite handsome, a pure gentleman, and a great swordsman. Kaneko was a petite girl, with shortish white hair, with 2 cat clips, and hazel eyes. She was also very quiet, but not shy. Any word on who the attacker was, Buchu? Kiba inquired. Rias simply shook her head and sighed in annoyance. Even Big Brother couldn't find anything useful to help us, other than maybe the abandoned church nearby. Rias was locked in thought. She also couldn't stop thinking of a certain teen. Who was that boy yesterday who ran off? I want to meet him. Line break. Issei opened his eyes after feeling a sensation of falling. He was in a new world. The surrounding landscape was obscure, like something out of art. It was a craggly mountainous area, with thunderclouds scattering across the sky, firing down at random intervals. But the stranger things were the surrounding phenomena. Tornadoes of fire littering the land, raging on without any signs of stopping. There was also a nearby ocean, but it was floating. Bubbles of water drifted across the sky to the left of Issei, with animals inhabiting each bubble, some jumping between the two. Issei stood, dumbfounded. Then he heard a thunderous roar coming from the sky, causing him to clap his hands on his ears to avoid being deafened. He looked up and saw a small glint of light, growing bigger at each passing second, until he could make out the shape. It looked like an animal of sorts, maybe a lizard. Then it grew closer. It was a dragon. The dragon grew closer and closer till it hurtled into the ground close to Issei. The ground rumbled and rattled about for some moments as dust clouded the area. When it finally settled, the child got a better look at the monstrosity before him. It was a large western dragon, covered in pitch-black scales and had bright blue eyes. Smoke emanated from its mouth as it spoke to Issei. So, you are my host? It was a feminine voice, fit for a model, not a dragon. What do you want from me? Issei asked, terrified by the beast before him. but the dragon gave a pleasant laugh. "Well, I shall introduce myself then, forgive me for forgetting my manners." The dragon stood at full height, spread its wings and gave a horrifying roar. The ground shook, the thunderclouds started forming more and zapping louder and more frequently. The fire tornadoes turned into hurricanes and the ocean began to form into a tsunami. Iamsvarkova, the elemental dragon. The beast roared again. Issei cowered in fear at this. Once the dragon came down from its full height, it gave Issei a small, sorrowful look. "I have seen your life, child, and no, I am sorry for all that has happened to you. A child should not have had to deal with that at such a young age." Svarkova moved forward, more fluidly and silently than Issei could imagine possible from a creature of her size. Once she was close enough, she curled around Issei, giving him a protective bubble, with him at the center. Svarkova was it? "Why am I here?" Issei asked nervously, in case he angered the dragon. "It is because you are my host, child. You possess the lost Longinus Deity's Annihilation. It allows you to control all the elements, such as wind, water, fire, electricity and many more." "Alright. But why do I have it?" "Because you are pure of heart and were chosen as its rightful owner," Svarkova explained simply. "See, can I call you Scarlet?" Issei asked shyly. Svarkova has such a long name and she suits her better, despite her appearance. The dragon was in thought for a moment, as Issei's nerves were growing, as he hoped he didn't anger her. "Scarlet, I like it." Svarkova, Scarlet, announced fondly, as he increased her grip on Issei, allowing him to feel safe. Then it dawned upon Issei, "Scarlet, what happened last night?" "All I remember was a group of people and the leader creating something made of some weird light, then it's blurry." Scarlet lost her fond tone and held a neutral one. "Those were fallen angels, my child, and they almost killed you. But you called upon me to save you. So I gave you my strength, but your body wouldn't have been able to withstand the stress. So I knocked you unconscious and took over your body and killed them. To protect you, I would do anything." The dragon added the last part lovingly, as a mother would to her child. "But what of the girl they were mugging?" Issei inquired carefully as he was afraid of the answer. Svarkova was silent for a moment, then spoke up. "I'm sorry, Issei, one of the fallen killed her before I could save her." Scarlet admitted sadly, knowing an innocent girl was harmed when she was present. Issei's hair covered his eyes. "I need to get stronger," he said determinedly, after a minute of silence. He looked up at the beast, tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "Please Svarkova, I need to get stronger to help those in need." This broke Svarkova's heart, seeing Issei in this state. All she did was nod. "Well, Issei, now that's done," she added energetically, "I need to get you caught up on the supernatural word. Well, that's the new chapter for you guys. I finished writing this at 2 a.m. So if it seems rushed, sorry, I'm just too tired. Anyway, for those who liked Asia, I'm sorry. But it was suggested to me by a reader and I liked the idea. I have no hate to Asia, but I have other ideas. Well, please review, favorite and all that good stuff. See you in the next one." Previous ch2 of 19 Next, Chapter 3 Deity's Annihilation. So, first off as usual, reviews. Mr. Jake Fozzie. Thank you very much, and here you go, as requested. Faradile. I was thinking about that. Yes. I'll probably have it as he progresses through the story, thanks. Indominus. Here you go my friend, Joe A12. Thank you very much mate, and here's the next one. To all of those who added the story and followed, favorited the story. Thank you so much, it fills me with so much pride that people like my content, and don't be afraid to add ideas and such to the comments, it helps a lot. Anyways, on to the next one. Talking, thoughts, Svarkova. Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova. Svarkova speaking out loud Chapter 3 After Svarkova informed Issei of all the supernatural in the world. This includes the three factions, the Great War, the Scared Gears and all the other pantheons. He was taken out of the inner world and woke up on his bed. His eyes fluttered open, as he stared at the ceiling, letting all the information Scarlet told him soak in. His train of thought was broken by his alarm, warning him he should wake up for school. He slept for a full day, learning all the information from Scarlet took time. He got off his bed, and worked all the pain out of his limbs and headed to do his daily routine. Once he washed his face, he gazed at the mirror, as he almost fell onto the ground at the new discovery. My eyes, he said out loud. Both of his eyes changed color. They were a bright yellow, then shifted to a light blue, and to a deep crimson and so on. Ah, there were some side effects from me forcing you into the balance breaker armor. When you are using your sacred gear, your eyes will change color to each respective element you use. If it is water, they will turn blue, fire, red and so forth, Svarkova informed him. That's pretty cool, I guess. He focused and they changed back to their original chocolate brown. He studied his eyes a moment longer, before he continued with his routine. When he dried himself off from the shower, he went to get his uniform, noticing the rip in the shirt from the last Friday. Just looking at it made Issei nervous. Don't worry my child, there is nothing to fret about, it would have gotten out anyway at some point. Embrace your wounds, show people you are strong, Svarkova comforted the teen, giving him some courage. Okay Scarlet, I'll try, Issei added, slightly downcast at the memory, but now feeling slightly better at the thought of seeing the trio again. There was a small glint of light in Issei's eyes, ADN his uniform was repaired. Handy trick, thanks Scarlet, Issei thanked sincerely. No need my boy, Svarkova added, with a hint of pride at his compliment. After Issei got dressed, he made a small breakfast of udon noodles, and the same for his lunch. He went on his way. Line break the trio waited at the gate for the shy teen. I hope he shows after what happened on Friday. Damn Matsuda, I'm gonna kill him. Hanai added furiously, pissed that the stupid pervert would do that to someone so nice. Issei walked through the gate at that moment, hearing what Hanai said. Please don't, he didn't do much wrong, Issei said, shyly. The three girls walked up to him with a concerned look. Issei knew what they were thinking, it was obvious after the last day. Is there somewhere quiet we can go to before class starts? He asked, looking around, noticing people were pointing to him and talking about him, while throwing glances of pity at him. The girls looked at each other and nodded, knowing where to go. Hanai and Katsa grabbed him by his hands without his permission, with Murayama leading the way. They led him about the grounds while he was blushing furiously, not used to the feminine contact. Once they got around the corner, they led him to a building and led him inside. He saw a sign outside the door, Kendo Club. Why here? He asked curiously, not sure why here of all places. We are all part of the Kendo Club, but we don't meet up on Mondays, so it's empty today, Murayama explained to the teen. Once inside the main area, he walked himself over to the mats, and gestured them to come over. Once the girls were Issei started to get nervous. Don't worry Issei, if these girls are really your friends, they will try to help as much as they can. They won't laugh at you. Scarlet read right through him and confirmed him in his head. This helped him as he nodded his head in his mind and lifted his shirt to the trio. They all gasped in shock and pity at the sight before them. They have never seen a body this scarred before in all their lives, and held sorrow for the boy. When I was little, we went on a holiday to Tokyo. It was my first holiday and I loved it. But on the flight home, the plane crashed, killing everyone on board, even my parents. I was the only survivor, barely kept alive. I pulled through, but now my body is covered in scars. He traced the big one from his heart to his hip as he spoke. Each and every one of these remind me of what I lost that day, and I miss them so much. He had unshed tears all the way through his speech, but now they fell freely, showing his true emotions. Hanai just pulled his hands away from his shirt, allowing it to drop back into place, and embraced him. Normally he would freeze from such a beautiful girl holding him. But now he just held her back with passion as he needed someone to hold now. The other two joined as well, wanting to comfort the boy in his time of distress. After about 10 minutes of his non-stop tears, they slowed down to a halt and Issei pulled away from the girls. Thank you all so much, I'm so happy to have people to care about me again, he confessed with a sad smile. Not a problem Issei-san, we're friends, and friends help each other out in times of need, Katase informed him kindly. The bell then rang, signaling the start of class. Issei pulled his blazer on, and walked with the girls to class. Line break Ria spotted Issei with the trio of girls and her spirit immediately lifted. She then blushed furiously. Why am I acting like this? He's only a boy, and I haven't even met him yet. Ria's questioned in her mind as she left the clubroom to go to her class. Line break Issei re-entered the class for the first time since the incident. The girls led him to his seat, which was in the middle of the class. Katase was to his right, Murayama was in front and Hanai was to his left. The class started to slowly fill until it was the two perverts' turn to enter. Issei started to get scared of the two. Even though he was about a head and a half taller, very built, and had a top-class Longinus with a very protective dragon. Despite all of that, he was still scared. The smaller one, Matsuda, came over, looking apologetically and rubbing the back of his head. But before he could say anything, the trio all stood up in unison, stopping him in his place. The two knew the wrath of the kendo club after one of their many peeking sessions. When the pervert realized he wouldn't be able to get through the girls, he just sighed and kept walking to his desk at the back, feeling very guilty and asshole-ish. Then the teacher walked in and the class started. Issei paid attention in class and was very intelligent, allowing the teacher to catch him up on the notes he missed very easily. All around the class when he was answering were looks of lust and want. Even the trio felt the need to be closer to him. The only entity that knew the reason was Svarkova, who intentionally skipped out on telling Issei that dragons attract people to them naturally, making him be able to get used to the female body and hopefully recover. Once the class ended for lunch, the girls brought Issei to the cafeteria, where Rias and her peerage were there. Issei didn't see them as a couple of girls came to talk to him. One even asked him out, to the despair of the trio, but he politely and shyly declined, making the trio sigh in relief. Rias noted this and was drawn even closer to him, seeing how kind and selfless and broken he was. She wanted to help him. She needed to help him. Rias was making her way to the group, but the trio wanted to somewhere where people wouldn't swarm Issei as they can see his discomfort with all the people talking to him and asking him out. The trio dragged Issei out of the room and make their way to the roof. He hesitated for a moment as he saw a glimpse of red in amongst the crowds, but he was pulled out of the room before he could get a good look at the source. Rias was disappointed at his lack of presence and felt a pang of jealousy of the girls, before returning to her group, swatting away their questions. Once lunch ended, the rest of school passed like normal, but Rias was growing more restless at each passing second at not being able to converse with the shy boy. Once class ended, she quickly sought out Issei with the help of her best friend and rival, Sona, who kindly gave Rias the details of Issei's schedule, trying to make it to his class, navigating the growing crowds trying to get home quickly. Rias made it to his class too late, as it was empty. Rias stomped her foot on the ground in annoyance at the bad luck she was having. She needed to find him before she went mad with need. She bolted out the main entrance as she went to find the teen. Line break Issei made his way out the front gate as he split up with the girls, who made their own way home. He relished the silence. His mind troubled by something and Svarkova could sense it. "What is wrong, Issei?" Svarkova inquired curiously. "I feel like the whole day someone wanted to talk with me," he conversed silently to the dragon. "Pretty much everyone in the school wanted to talk with you, child," Svarkova joked. "No, this one was more desperate. And I kept seeing glimpses of red every time I felt it, but I couldn't make out their face with the crowds," Issei added, getting lost in a train of thought. The she-dragon kept silent at this, not wanting to disturb the boy. He was snapped out of it by a flap of wings from above. A single black feather floated from above. "Issei, move!" Svarkova screamed in his mind. He quickly sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a large spear of light that embedded itself into the pavement. He heard a low, throaty chuckle from above as he turned his gaze that way. It was a man in a fedora, with a black trench coat, which kept the length of his body. "Quick reactions, kid. Doesn't matter though, I have orders to kill you from the boss. An order's an order," he finished as he flung another lance at the child, which he backed away from, without realizing the second spear which was sent as it pierced just below his liver. He shouted out in pain as he held his side. "Scarlet, I need a hand," Issei remarked to the dragon, but before she could reply, a second light spear was sent right through his right lung. All feeling left the boy's body as he fell to the ground. "Good job at dodging the first two, but for a human, it's only natural you don't stand a chance against a fallen. Sorry kid, gotta run. Remember my name in the afterlife. I am Donasik," he concluded as he flew off into the night. His body went limp as Svarkova's cries for his attention went unheard. He just stared at his bloody hands. Red again. I wonder who that was the whole day. His thoughts drifted away in his state of blood loss. Line break Rias wandered the streets as she turned a corner and saw a gruesome scene. A boy was on the floor bleeding from multiple wounds. She rushed over to his body and came to a horrifying realization. It was him. It was the boy she was so drawn to. He was losing his consciousness as the seconds passed. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw him in this state. He didn't deserve this. He was just a kind, shy, emotionally broken boy. He didn't need this in his life, she thought. She gasped as an idea formed in her head. I can save him. He might not have any power, but I need to save him. He shouldn't have died. She shouted in her head as she summoned a magic circle by her side and pulled out her remaining pieces. 1 bishop, 1 rook, 1 knight and 8 pawns, 5 of which were mutation. 3 of the mutated pieces were gifts from her mother, and 2 generated by the evil piece system. Rias placed a singular pawn piece on his chest. The piece glowed brightly, but died down as the piece remained untaken by his body. No, 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 no. What's happening? Why isn't it working? She panicked as she frantically dropped all her remaining pieces onto his chest. Then she gasped in shock and awe. All 8 pawn pieces glowed. Even the mutation pieces. She was in amazement. How strong is he? She pondered, entranced, before remembering the task at hand. The heiress of Gremory made her chant for his reincarnation, and the light around Issei died down, allowing Rias to see Issei's chest rising and falling, showing he was alive, but barely. She sighed from exhaustion from using 8 pieces worth 13 possible pieces. Rias summoned her trademark magic circle and teleported them to his house as he was dropped onto his bed. Rias watched on in lovingness at her new pawn, and lust at the need of the boy. She undressed, letting out her massive breasts and letting her hair fall down her flawless body. She climbed onto the bed with him and clung to him to start the healing process. Rias blushed heavily at the contact. What's happening to me? Why is it every time I'm with him my body gets hot? Rias wondered as she continued her healing till she drifted to sleep, alongside him, her new pawn. So, this is the new chapter. I hope you enjoyed, review, favorite and all that good stuff if you like. If you have any questions or ideas, don't be afraid to input them, it helps a lot. Anyway, see you in the next one. First, previous ch3 of 19 next, chapter 4 Deity's Annihilation. Before I start anything, I have made some minor changes to chapter 3, shown to me by a review from Praise Helix, and I have updated it, though it's nothing major. So, if you want to see what has changed, the main parts that have changed are in the cafeteria scene and before he's about to die. Just some different thoughts and observations. With that out of the way, reviews, Zesterios. Thank you very much my friend, it seems you like my content a lot, which I'm happy for smiley face. Also happy birthday. Hope you got what you wanted, and don't worry, he'll get what he deserves. Praise Helix. Thank you very much for pointing those things out. Now that I read that, it makes a lot more sense what you said. So, now Issei will call Svarkova Scarlet, but I'll address her as Svarkova when I narrate. What you said about me not going into great detail is on purpose. I'm saving all the detail for the orc. Faradile. Don't worry, I have a plan for the trio. The one is not what she seems. Thank you for the praise as well. Indominus. Thanks a lot, and here you go my friend. Well, now that all the other stuff is out of the road, on to the next one. Talking, thoughts, Svarkova. Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova. Svarkova speaking out loud chapter 4 It was about 3:14 a.m., on a flight coming from Tokyo, its destination, Ko. Most people were asleep, due to the lateness of the flight. But this excludes one young boy. Our protagonist, Issei. He was with his parents, who were asleep to his right side as he was on the aisle seat. The young boy was 11 years old, not having many friends, but he was fine with that. He prefers his company, and his parents' company over loud crowds of people. He was enveloped in his book he got as a present from his parents at his birthday. It was a book his father wrote himself, but nonetheless, the boy was entranced in it. He was too busy studying its contents that he didn't realize how late it was. Meanwhile, on the ground below, a group of people stood in a field, looking up at the passing vehicle. The leader of the group, the first one who spoke up. He is on that flight. We need to kill Revis Hyodo. He is too powerful to be left alive. Olu, shoot it down, the man ordered. The man was about 6 inches 3, had an ominous aura to him and was very pale. But the main features that stood out about him were his ears and eyes. His ears were pointy and elf-like, while he had pale pink eyes. He was a Kadri-class fallen angel. But Lord Kokebiel, should we really do that? One of his subordinates asked, skeptically, but nervously, not wanting to get on his bad side. I mean, there are civilians on board, we could just wait till he lands and taw. He was interrupted by a light spear through his heart. Anyone else who doesn't follow my orders will be next. The Kokebeel warned the others, while spreading his 8 wings, asserting his dominance. The other 4 didn't miss a beat as they charged up their light spears and all launched in unison, sending them right into the flight path of the carrier. Issei was suddenly jerked out of his seat, being sent down the aisle, as an explosion ripped the back half of the plane in half. His foot was trapped between 2 chairs as he lay unconscious. Revis and Medina Hyodo were snapped out of their slumber and quickly assessed the situation. Medina spoke first. We have to protect Issei. She shouted over the sound of the rushing wind and the roars of the flames so her husband could hear her. Medina was a human, with light brown, long, flowing hair and beautiful chocolate brown eyes. She was the perfect mother. Kind, caring, accepting and loved Issei and her husband to a fault. Her husband, Revis, on the other hand, had short black hair, piercing yellow eyes and a face fit for a male model. He came from the Devil clan of Ikran, a house known for their power of electricity. It was one of the 72 pillars, though it was disbanded as he married a human and gave up his name for the sake of Issei, so he could live a normal life. Issei was born fully human though, which was a surprise to the couple, as Medina would never cheat on her husband, as she loved him unconditionally, and he knew she wouldn't. It was only a small chance that a child of a mixed-race marriage would be only one of the races exclusively, but it was a possibility. They did sense a sacred gear, but they never would have believed that it would have been Deity's Annihilation. It did make sense in a way, as it was an elemental Longinus and his house specialized in lighting magic. Revis nodded his head in a heartbeat. He could have saved himself, but he loved his child more than life, and the mother loved Issei as much, if not more, as she was happy he took her place as a survivor. The devil cast a defensive spell around Issei, but before he could fortify the strength, the plane crashed to the ground. Issei was still unconscious when 15 minutes later as a rescue crew came to help. They found he was the only survivor, only sustaining minor, non-life-threatening wounds. The child woke up in the hospital 12 days later, alone in the world, to fend for himself, unaware of the being inside him, or the sacrifices his parents made to him. Line break. Issei shot awake from the same nightmare he has every night, the crash. He was dripping in sweat and struggled to catch his breath. He was having a panic attack. Issei. Snap out of it. Breathe, Svarkova assured him. After listening to her advice, the teen calmed down and steadied his breathing. He looked around at his surroundings. He was in his room. Okay, see? You're fine now, my child. Svarkova crooned maternally. Thanks Scarlet, I needed that. What happened yesterday? He conversed aloud to the dragon, before freezing at a yawn to his left. He slowly looked over, dreading what he would see. His eyes rested upon a crimson-haired beauty. He pondered for a moment, thinking about the flashes of red in school the day before, trying to piece everything together. Ria's eyes fluttered open and she sat up to stretch. Issei then started to realize there was a girl in his bed. And to make matters worse, she was naked. He fell out of bed with a yelp and averted his eyes. Rias looked over to where the commotion was, spotting Issei on the floor. She giggled slightly before crawling to the edge of the bed, allowing her large breasts swing freely in front of Issei, making him blush furiously. What? Why are you in my bed, and naked? Wait, who are you? He fired out questions without even taking time to breathe in between. Rias just laughed at the teen's nervousness, before answering his questions. I am Rias Gremory. Hi to you too. The redhead joked lightly as his gaze was still averted. This made her blush slightly. He's not looking at me. Normal teens his age would just oogle at my chests, some may even force themselves upon me. But he is different, she observed. Why are you in my room, naked? He asked again, after not getting an answer the first time. I was healing you. You got beat up pretty badly yesterday. You almost died, so I made you into a devil and healed you. Rias confessed like it was nothing. Oh, okay then wait what? That was real. And what do you mean devil? Issei did a double take, then asked, confused. He was looking into her eyes at this point, not bothering to pay attention to her nakedness anymore, he was just confused. You were almost killed by that fallen angel yesterday, But I came across you and reincarnated you into my servant. Rias explained simply, as if she was telling the weather. Issei's mouth opened slightly at this. Svarkova taught him about reincarnation with devils, so he understood the concept. Then, thank you Rias-sama. Issei bowed his head to the heiress. I owe you my life. Rias was dumbfounded at this. She never expected this reaction. She expected him to deny her claims or even refuse to listen to her and tell her to get out. She looked on at the boy who was still bowing, at amazement. It's okay. Being a servant for my house isn't nearly as bad as it sounds. The Gremory household treats their servants with love, as their own. Rias reached over and tilted his chin up so she could see his face. He had a fake smile, yet she could see the constant sadness in his eyes. What could have caused him this much pain? That he's always sad. He always has this look in his eyes. I want to help him. I need to. Wait. How did you accept that I was a devil so easily? And the fallen angel? She inquired, curious. I think it is time I introduced myself, Issei. Svarkova informed him. The newly made devil stood up. Issei's eyes shone brightly, before turning dragonic and started to shift colors right before Rias, who sat in amazement, not caring about her still being naked. I am Svarkova, the elemental dragon, and Issei is my host. He wields the lost Longinus Deity's Annihilation, the first person in existence. Svarkova revealed herself to Rias, and watched as her expression changed from amazement at the sudden voice, to downright horror and wonder at the same time as she heard who the voice belonged to. I know who you are, Rias Gremory, the heir to the house of Gremory. Issei was attacked by Fallen not too long ago as well. He was almost killed, but I forced Balance Breaker so he wouldn't be killed. He has only known of the supernatural for a few days. SS Svarkova. The famed elemental dragon who almost caused the end of the world. Rias stuttered out in fear. Issei was amazed by this statement, as he stayed silent throughout the confrontation. Do not fret, my darling, those days have passed and I now only care of Issei's well-being. Svarkova reassured her, lovingly. She also added, I know that you were telling the truth about your house loving their servants. If he was going to be treated as a tool, I would have never let you reincarnate him, so no, I trust you Rias Gremory. So that's why he took all 8 of my pawns. Even the 5 mutated pieces. Rias deduced aloud. You Rias-sama. Issei interrupted her train of thought. He averted his head again, with his eyes returning to their normal state. He was sporting a massive blush. She questioned him. Why you still don't have clothes on? He pointed out. She just looked down at her naked body, and picked up her uniform she placed beside the bed. She stood up and replaced each piece. Issei waited patiently, still facing the wall, wearing only his school trousers, with small bloodstains on them. When Rias was finished, she gazed at Issei's back in shock. It was scarred beyond belief. She studied his back in pity and sorrow. She then spoke up, Issei, what happened to you? Rias asked him, wondering what could have possibly happened to him. He started to tear up and he slowly turned to face her. She gasped when she saw his front. It was way worse than his back, and the main scar of his chest was horrifying. She covered her mouth with her hand as she studied his body. As a child, this would have taken up most of his body. He had a small, sad smile. We were coming back from a holiday in Tokyo. Just my parents and me, not business, no calls from work. A week of justice, as a family. It was the best time of my life. I was never the most popular child in school, but I didn't mind. I loved spending time with my parents. It was on the plane back. He walked over to his bedside table, opened it and pulled out its contents. A book. My father made this for me, it was for my birthday. That was what the holiday was for. This was the last thing they gave me. His tears started to fall freely now. Rias could only listen to this boy's story, wanting to help. It was about 3:15 a.m. on a flight from Tokyo to Kuo, when the back of the plane blew up. I was flown into the aisle, knocked out. I woke up from a coma about 2 weeks later. I was the only survivor. They said they found 2 bodies covering me. It was my parents. They saved me. They are the reason I'm alive. He now broke down in tears from recounting his parents' last moments. 2 hands snaked around his stomach as Rias held him from behind, comforting him. It's okay Issei, you have me now. You aren't alone anymore. Rias started to cry as well, from the teen opening up for her, which she knows isn't easy. Issei broke free of her hold, which she was disappointed at, before she was pulled to him in a strong, protective embrace. He wasn't alone anymore, and he wasn't going to lose her, the woman who saved him. She blushed at his contact, before snuggling into his chest. I feel so safe when he holds me. What's happening to me? Line break. After Issei broke the embrace nearly 30 minutes later, Rias craved for his touch more, but held her tongue as his clock informed them that school would start soon. Issei let Rias have a shower first while he prepared breakfast. When she came down the stairs to the kitchen, she entered, skin still slightly wet, and her hair dangling freely. Wow. He said out loud by accident. What? Rias asked, bemused, thinking he was a pervert. And nothing, it's just that you are very beautiful, Rias-sama. Issei confessed nervously, rubbing his neck. At that comment, Rias blushed furiously, her face going the same shade as her hair. Her heart fluttered at that remark. No one, apart her family, had called her beautiful before. And given that it was Issei who said it, she loved it. Thank you, Issei, and call me Buchu now, because I'm the president of the Occult Research Club. You will be joining it as well, as everyone in it are devils. Rias explained to the teen, still blushing at his last remark. Oh, okay, Buchu. Call me Eyes then, my parents did. Issei added. She nodded kindly, and Issei made his way to the shower and did his daily routine. When they were both ready, they left for school. Line break. Once the two got into the gate, almost every eye were on the two. Most looks were of sadness, that either Rias or Issei was taken, but a few of envy and jealousy. The girls wanted Issei and the boys wanted Rias. Rias, on instinct, took Issei's hand in her own. Issei blushed and looked at Rias, who was also blushing, but with a comforting smile on her face. Scarlet, I noticed this before. Why does almost every girl in the school look at me like this? Issei inquired the dragon. Well, beside the fact the girls find you attractive, dragons attract people to them. Most of the dragon's sacred gear wielders had girls flocking them. It's natural for members of the opposite sex to be drawn to you unconsciously. Svarkova explained to the boy. When they reached the school doors, Rias stopped and turned to Issei. I will send someone to get you later, Eyes. Bye. Rias departed with that last word. He watched as the beautiful teen turned the corner and sighed in content at his life now. It wasn't perfect, but he was happy. He then made his way into the school to start the day. Well, I didn't plan for Issei's and Rias' relationship to grow so quickly, but it happened, and it's gonna stay that way. I have big plans for the future now, and I used this chapter to set the groundworks. Keep that book in mind, it will be very important in the future. Well, if you liked this chapter, review, favorite and all that good stuff, it really helps, and don't be afraid to drop ideas in the comments. See you in the next one. First, previous ch4 of 19. Next, chapter 5 Deity's Annihilation. No reviews from the last one, so straight into the story. Here's the next one. Talking, thoughts, Svarkova. Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova speaking out loud. Mode change. Chapter 5 Issei, after parting with Rias, made his way to his class, ignoring the spreading rumors passing around him. Once he made it to his class, he got jumped by a figure, with their chest accidentally pushing against his face. Issei. Why didn't you tell us about Rias Wanisama? Kataise shouted, annoyed. Murayama looked on at the scene, holding in a laugh. But Hanai looked nervous, even scared at the mention of Rias. Issei couldn't see this behind Kataise's breasts though. The boy just stood frozen to the spot as Kataise hugged him, proud. I'm so happy for you. You've improved so much, Kataise praised the teen. Issei just tore himself from her grasp, panting from the lack of oxygen. Kataise realized what she was doing and blushed madly. But before she could apologize and explain herself, the teacher walked into the class and the day began. Issei could barely concentrate during the whole day as all he could think about was Rias. He couldn't explain what he was thinking, only that his heart knew. He loved her. He was broken from his trance when he saw Hanai looking at him with a regretful look on her face, like she had to do something she didn't want to. I can't kill him. Why Kokebiel? Why do you torment this child so much? All he wants are friends and to not be alone anymore. She screamed in her head, torn between not wanting to die, yet not wanting to kill this sweet, innocent boy. He hasn't done anything wrong. There was only one reason these thoughts circulated through her head. She was a fallen angel. She was known as one of the most beautiful angels in heaven, second to Gabriel of course. She fell because of a man. Flashback: Hanai was coming back from a job exorcising a spirit from a little girl. She liked to walk out stress after jobs. She was in her hometown, Ko. She passed through a park with a water fountain in the center of it. The angel heard light footsteps running. She turned to see who it was and if they needed help, but she was forced against the fountain, unable to move due to strong arms pinning her to the stone. Well, what do we have here? Someone who wants to get fucked, the man said, with a heavy Russian accent. She tried to release herself from his arms, but he had her stuck. He lifted her dress and she tried to scream, but his hand clasped her mouth. With a slow shake of his head, he signaled that there will be no more screaming. He trailed his hand up her thigh. Her problem was, she promised to God that she wouldn't harm another human, but if her innocence was taken, she would be cast out of heaven. She teared up, knowing there was no way out of this that would keep her an angel. Aaaaaaggghhhh. She screamed as a blinding light took hold of both their bodies and his head was blown off. His hands went limp and his body fell onto the ground. She felt a searing pain pass throughout her body, and make its way to her back. More specifically her wings. After a moment, the pain passed as she lay on the ground, sobbing. She unfurled her wings and gasped in shock. They were black as night. She continued to cry, not caring that her wings were out, as a figure approached her. She looked up, tears still streaming down her face. You are one of us now, don't worry my child. I am Azazel, I will take care of you. Flashback: End. Hanai dwelled in her past, before she realized Issei was looking at her with a concerned gaze. Are you okay? You look sad. Issei whispered to her. She blushed a small bit at his concern, before nodding her head slightly. Why yeah, I'm fine Issei-san. Hanai confirmed for him. His gaze lingered for a moment longer, then he smiled at her. Not his usual fake smile, but a real, sincere smile, that made her heart flutter. I can't do it, I can't. Line break: at the start of lunch, a man came into the room, and all the girls swarmed him. It was Kiba Yuto. He made his way to Issei's seat while kindly denying all the girls' advances to him. Issei Hyodo, I am Kiba. Rias sent me to get you. He introduced himself kindly. Look, the two princes of Kuo together, I might faint. One of the girls shouted out as the others agreed. Issei just blushed, and nodded at Kiba. They both managed to navigate the cluster of horny females and made their way to the occult research club room. Once inside, it was only Kiba and Issei in the room, but also a figure behind a shower curtain. I've brought him Buchu. Kiba stated to the girl taking a shower in the corner. Excellent, thank you Kiba. Take a seat eyes, the others will join us soon. The teen looked around the room and sat on a seat opposite the swordsman. After about 2 minutes, another person entered the room, a small girl with white hair, Kaneko. She sat beside Issei, too close for his comfort. Kaneko sensed pain and hurt from his past and related to him on a level, with her sister. She wanted to comfort the boy, as Rias once did to herself. Kaneko pulled out a packet of crisps and offered Issei one. Thank you very much. Issei kindly took the offered food and gave the girl a small smile, which made her blush slightly. As he said that, another figure entered the room. It was a tall girl with pitch black hair, purple eyes and massive breasts. Not that Issei cared about that last part. Era, a new person, nice to meet you. Akeno greeted. And nice to meet you too. Issei offered back, shyly. Akeno saw this and giggled slightly, noticing his shy personality. Rias then came out of the shower, with a towel around her waist, still dripping some droplets. Issei blushed at this. Now that everyone is here, let's introduce ourselves to our newest member. Kiba stood up and bowed formally. I am Kiba Yuto, I'm also a second year. Let's get along, okay. Kiba introduced himself for a second time. Kaneko stood up and bowed her head. Kaneko Taju, first year. Kaneko introduced herself simply, not speaking much. My name is Akeno Hamejima, nice to meet you. I'm a third year. The long-haired beauty introduced herself, bowing to the young man. And I am Rias Gremory, third year. I am also your new master. We are all devils. After she said the last statement, all the orc members released their wings, amazing Issei. Well, I'm Issei Hyodo, nice to meet all of you. Issei bowed politely. I think it is time, Issei. Show me to them. Svarkova informed him, speaking for the first time since school started. Issei just nodded. Issei stood up straight again and his eyes shone brightly, alerting the devils, all apart from Rias, who was amazed the second time round. I am also the wielder of the lost Longinus Deity's Annihilation. His eyes shifted to dragonic and started to shift colors. I am Svarkova. I am the elemental dragon. Svarkova also introduced herself, petrifying and amazing all the devils. Scarlet saved me from fallen angels the first time, and she told me about the supernatural. I got killed by another fallen and Rias-sama saved me. I am forever in her debt. He bowed to his king at the last part. Rias just sighed happily and approached him. She embraced him, still damp from the shower. I told you, eyes, you owe me nothing, just make me proud. Rias told him with a blush. The blush grew as he hugged her back. Thank you, Buchu. Issei whispered to her, increasing her blush drastically at his proximity. She felt warm and safe in his arms. Like nothing could tear them apart. Issei let go, to her disappointment, and walked back a step to see her face. I will try my best to make you proud, Buchu. I promise. Issei said, with determination burning in his eyes, wanting to be able to repay the woman who saved his life and give him purpose again. I know you will, my eyes. Rias held his cheek with her hand. Buchu, there's been word of a stray nearby. The Archduke wants us to eliminate it. Akano broke the scene they were having, earning a hidden scowl by Rias, but she suppresses that and nods. Okay, eyes. Time for your first fight under me. Rias declares and sets up a magic circle. One blinding flash later, and the clubroom was empty. Line break outside an old, abandoned warehouse. A bright flash occurred out of thin air, and 5 teens emerged. Issei and Kaneko covered their noses as their heightened senses as a dragon and Nekomata, respectively, give them more acute senses. Bloodlust. They both said at the same time, it was here. Right. When we get in there, I'll give out orders of what to do. Issei, I want you to only attack on my say-so, okay. Rias gave her game talk. Got it. Issei announced with determination in his eyes. Rias nodded to the group and Kaneko bashed in the door, using her rook strength, with a swift kick. They poured in, and observed the room, scanning every inch of the premises. It was very quiet, then came a scuttling noise from the back of the large storage area, earning the full attention of the peerage. I can smell something disgusting, but I can also smell something delicious. Is it sweet? Or is it sour? A feminine voice called out, but it was hard and cold. Stray devil Visor, as the heiress of the Gremory house, we have been ordered to kill you. Rias declares loudly. Loud stomps were heard resonating around the vast, almost empty space. High up, behind a pillar, came a young female, but only her top half, and she was completely topless, showing off her large breasts. Katakatakatakatakatakatakatakata, the naked female stray, Visor laughed evilly. Leaving your master's side and rampaging as you please definitely deserve death. In the name of Duke Gremory, I will gladly eliminate you. Rias declared loudly. The rest of the beast emerged. It had 4 massive, beast legs and a normal upper half. You are cunning for a little girl. I will rip your body apart, and color it in red just like your hair. The monster barked, but Bucko just laughed. Strays sure do speak in a stylish manner. Kiba. Yes. The swordsman sprinted ahead of the group. Issei only barely caught a glimpse of him using his dragonic eyes. Eyes, you know of evil pieces, right? Rias turned to Issei and asked. Yes, Scarlet told me briefly about them. There is the king, queen, rook, bishop, knight and pawn, right? Issei looked to his president and told her. Yes, that's correct. Kiba's position is the knight. Its trait is speed. Those who become a knight have incredible speed. The stray devil pulled a spear out from behind it and aimed for Kiba, while still having trouble keeping him in sight. Kiba's weapons of choice are swords. Rias pointed out. Kiba stopped and suddenly he was holding a European sword. He took it out of the scabbard, and the drawn sword reflected the light of the moon. Kiba disappeared and a moment later, the monster howled at the moon in pain. When Issei looked at Visor again, both of its arms were cut from its torso along with the spear. Blood gushed out of its wounds. This is Kiba's power. Speed that you can't follow with your eyes, and sword skills of a professional. By combining these two, he becomes the fastest knight. There was a shadow near the monster's legs and Kaneko appeared. Next is Kaneko. She is a rook. The trait of a rook is extremely powerful strength and defense. Rias continued, though Issei could have guessed that Kaneko was a rook with the strength she showed outside on the door. The devil lifted its giant foot and stomped on Kaneko, but a brief second later, its whole body was being lifted into the air. The catgirl reappeared, with only slightly torn clothes. Fly. The petite girl stated simply. Kaneko jumped high and punched into the monster's stomach very sharply. A sound of a gunshot went off in the storehouse as the enormous body of the monster got sent into the wall behind it. Lastly, Akeno. Rias rounded off. Yes, bucko. Era, what should I do? Akeno pondered, while lightly biting her finger seductively. The queen just giggled as she made her way to where the beast was imprinted into the wall. Akeno is my queen. She's the one who is the strongest after me. She is the unbeatable vice president of our club who has all the traits of pawn, knight, bishop, and rook. Era. Seems like you still have some energy left in you. Then how about this? Issei heard Akeno converse to the monster, still in the wall. She put her hand toward the sky and a flash could be seen through the glass on the roof. At the same moment, a lightning bolt was sent down from the heavens, metaphorically, and struck the beast. Gaga. Visor managed to get out trough clattering teeth of the volts coursing through its body. Smoke poured out from its skin. Akeno excels at attacks using demonic powers. She could use natural elements like lightning, ice, and fire. And most of all, she is the ultimate sadist. Rias explains. Issei was taken back by the last part, but didn't comment. Buchu, can I show my powers to the group? Issei asks politely to his king, who just nodded kindly at the shy pawn. Okay eyes. Akeno. Let eyes show us his powers. Rias called out to the queen who made her way back, a content smile plastered on her face. Scarlet, is it okay with you if I can use your power again? Issei asked the being inside of him, while walking up to the monster. Of course, my child. There is no need to ask. Show this stray who it messes with. Show them the power of the elemental dragon. Svarkova prepped him. He nodded as his eyes changed to draconic. When he was close enough, he stopped moving and closed his eyes, imagining power course through his body, traveling to his center, ready to release. Okay Scarlet, let's do this. Balance break, elemental armor. Balance break, elemental armor. Mode change, raging fire opposer. An explosion of fire occurred in the middle of the room, washing the devils with raw power, but not harming them. In fact, all the girls felt warm and safe, a fire also growing in them. Once the fire settled down, everyone present gasped at the sight before them. A suit made of a pitch-black metal formed around the boy, but there were flames snaking around his whole surface area. In his helmet, fire streamed out of the mouthpiece and his eyepieces were tinted red. But despite all the flames, he didn't feel the heat or pain. In fact, it filled him with power. In his right hand, a sword was present, covered in flames with a dragon hilt. Issei took a step forward, and stood still after that. Then to everyone's amazement and Visor's horror, he disappeared. Even Kiba was amazed, even he couldn't follow his speed. There was a clanging sound as he reappeared in the same spot from the moment before. Everything was still, apart from the flames, for a moment before the monster fell apart, clear-cut wounds around its body, and covered in flames. Issei was still, before the suit deactivated and as he fell to the ground, Rias caught him. Sorry if I went overboard Buchu. The pawn apologized tiredly to his king. Rias just giggled at his words. Not a problem eyes, I'm just happy you weren't hurt. You are really strong. You made me proud. Rias confessed with a smile on her face, at the braveness at her pawn on his first fight. Issei's face lit up with an amazing smile that made Rias want him to smile more often. Thank you Buchu. Issei said, before passing out, unconscious. Rias giggled again and held him to her chest as she was happy with him. Again, she felt warm and safe by holding him, even though he was asleep. I think I have fallen for you, my eyes. Rias confessed in her thoughts. Akeno summoned a magic circle and transported everyone to the clubroom. Rias praised everyone, as they made their way home. Rias made her own circle and sent her and Issei through, onto his bed. She set him down, as she undressed. Thank you. Rias thought, looking at the man she loved. She crawled into bed beside him, not caring that either one of them have had a shower, and just lay on his chest. His arm came up and wrapped her to his chest. She blushed madly and looked up to him. His eyes were open slightly, and held a sincere smile on his face. He was truly happy. Rias just smiled back and nuzzled into his neck as he pulled her closer to him, and they drifted off to sleep. Well, that's the next chapter done. Rias and Issei's relationship is growing a lot faster than planned, but I'm happy with it. If you liked this chapter, review, favorite and all that good stuff. It really helps to know your content is liked. I'm out. See you in the next one. First, previous ch5 of 19 next. Chapter 6 Deity's Annihilation. Okay, first off, reviews. Zesterios. I'm not sure about adding them yet as I'm still in the progress of finishing the light novel and haven't officially encountered them, so I have yet to decide, and I will update every time I feel like writing. I don't want my work to be forced. Thanks a lot bud, here's the next. Ranger Elk 76. Thanks for reading and I hope you like the rest. Indominus. Here you go my friend. Well with that aside, I hope everyone has had a great start of the year, and I hope the best for the rest of the year. Here's the next one. Talking, thoughts, Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova speaking out loud, mode change. Chapter 6 Issei jolted awake, throat sore from screaming in his sleep, dripping in sweat. He started having a panic attack in the dark of his room, struggling to catch his breath. He tried to sit up but his muscles were locked in place, adding to his terror. A warmth spread across his body as he opened his eyes to see a naked Rias sitting over him trying to calm him down. Eyes. It's okay. It was just a dream. I'm here. Rias comforted him with a smooth, loving voice. Issei looked up at her, his draconic vision working in the darkness. His breathing slowed to a normal pace, and his sweating stopped. Rias just held him, showing he wasn't alone anymore. Was it your nightmare again? Rias asked calmly, trying to find out the source of his anguish. He just nodded weakly, his strength returning to his body once more. Rias just looked down at him, not caring at her nakedness. She only wanted to soothe the scared and emotional boy. She let go of his arms that he was flailing only moments before. When she released him, his arms snaked up and pulled her into a tight embrace, but not too restricting. He just held her as her presence warmed him to his core. She blushed at his grasp, but held him back with equal passion. They stayed like that for about 10 minutes, enjoying each other in silence. Issei then whispered in her ear. Thank you Buchu. Rias just smiled, happy with their positions. In private, call me Rias please. When it's just us. Rias asked the boy, wanting to hear the man she loved call her by her name. Okay. Rias. Issei whispered in her ear. That made her hot. She hasn't been called her name by other people than her family. This made her so happy she could cry. Rias? Issei questioned, still by her ear. Yes, my eyes? What is it? Rias pushed further, moving her head away to look into his beautiful eyes. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I can't help it. Issei confessed nervously at her possible reactions. You can tell me anything, you know that. Rias comforted the boy. Okay, I love you. Issei confessed, his heart pounding at the thought of her turning him down. Rias just sat, staring into his eyes. He took this the wrong way. I am sorry I'll go. He didn't get to finish his sentence as Rias smashed her soft lips against his. He was surprised for a moment, but kissed back without any restrictions. They kissed for about a minute before they had to part to gather air. They sat panting, gazing into each other's eyes. Rias were slightly glazed over in love. I love you too eyes. I was afraid you didn't feel the same way so I didn't say. I didn't want to lose you. Rias confessed, tears threatening to fall from her blue-green eyes. This made Issei's heart do a leap in his chest. It physically hurt to see his love cry. He just renewed the embrace, holding her to him as it was his turn to comfort her. I would never leave you. I love you Rias. So much. Please don't cry, I hate it. Issei still held her as she started to cry. Neither of them said a word, as they just lay on the bed, holding each other. After Rias stopped crying at his possible reactions, she leaned up and continued to stare in his eyes, loving the way he looked at her. He was hers. Only hers. Rias gave him a peck on the lips as their alarm went off. showing the need to get ready for school. Rias lifted herself off the boy and stood in all her naked glory. Issei would have normally averted his eyes at this sight, but he just took in all her beauty. She blushed under his gaze, but loved every second of his gaze. After Issei got up as well, he started breakfast for the two as she showered off his sweat from the nightmare. She didn't mind having his scent on her, but for hygiene she had to rid her skin of it, to her disappointment. When she emerged from the shower, she ventured downstairs, looking for her love and pawn. She followed the glorious smell of feed as it brought her to his kitchen. He was by the oven with his back to her, only dressed in a pair of trousers from yesterday. She stood in awe at his body, but in slight worry at his scars. She snuck up behind him and held him around his chest, being a head shorter than him. He snuggled into her hold and temporarily forgot about the food. She let him go and sat at the table, awaiting the food. Not out of laziness, just that he told her to sit as he brought the food. He placed a Western dish in front of her as she dug in. She loved every second of it. He stood happily as she enjoyed her food, and he made his way to the shower. When he finished his daily routine, and got dressed, he found Rias hand-washing the dishes, saving him the effort. It was his turn to sneak up behind her, and held her around the stomach and kissed the inside of her neck as she moaned lightly. She loved his lips grazing against her skin and held his arms. After about 30 seconds, he ceased in his loving display, to her disappointment. It made her want more. She hid her emotion and dressed herself in the school uniform with magic. He was in awe at how she looked amazing no matter what she wore. She found his eyes and held his hand, which he blushed at, and they made their way to school. Line break once in the gate, the same as last time, every eye was on the two. Oh, my God! Are they a couple? They go so well together, a girl exclaimed and her friends nodded in agreement. Ah, he has Rias Onasama, I'm jealous of her, a different girl shouted. How is that fair? Share you dick, a jealous guy shouted. Rias started to get annoyed at the comments to her love, but Issei slightly tightened his grip on her hand. She calmed down almost immediately after his comforting grasp. They continued to make their way to class when they entered the school. When in the main door, Issei turned to Rias. Well, I'll see you after school, Buchu. Issei finished with a 10-second kiss on her lips which she sunk into, happily. When they broke, Issei gave her a kind smile, and went on his way. Everyone present was shocked at the show of affection, one or two girls even fainted. Rias was unaware of the crowd as she just giggled in glee to herself. She made her way to class, with a new skip in her step. Okay, this chapter is pretty short because I have to go out today, so I wanted to update before I left. This chapter is pretty much just a development chapter as Issei finally confessed his love. Well, if you enjoyed this chapter, review, favorite and all that good stuff. See you in the next one. P.S. Please leave ideas in the reviews. It helps a lot and makes the updates happen more frequently. First, previous ch6 of 19 next, chapter 7 Deity's Annihilation. Okay, first off, as usual, reviews. Zofia Hiodo Lucifer. Thank you very much, here's the next one. Finn's World and Stuff. That is not a bad idea, like he could disapprove with Issei. Wanting to protect Rias from this being with immense power. But with his display with Razor it could put him to rest. Thanks. Ranger Elk 76 Not to worry my friend, I don't plan on giving up this story for a good while yet. Chris 009 I completely forgot about that, thank you. It will come to light in this chapter or the next. Zesterios, I love the enthusiasm, but not sure about multiple lovers yet, as this Issei wouldn't approve of the notion of cheating on Rias just yet, without her consent. Love it though. Indominus, thank you very much, here's the next one and hope you had a great new year. Okay, with that out of the way, here's the next one. Talking, thoughts, Svarkova speaking to Issei. Svarkova speaking out loud, mode change. Chapter 7 When Issei managed to swerve his way through the swarming crowds that were either congratulating him or confronting him for stealing one of the hottest girls in school, he entered his class. Once he entered, he gave a big sigh of relief at being able to keep his life traversing the corridors. He made his way to his seat and noticed that the class was only about half full, with the three girls at their seats, conversing with each other. Issei sat in his seat and joined the conversation. Issei-san, what do you think would be better? Having all your school breaks at once, or spread out over the year? Kataise questioned Issei, with a look of frustration on her face. Issei guessed it was because the other two didn't agree with her. I would say spread out, so you have breaks in between terms, so all your work wouldn't pile up and out you under too much stress. But that's my opinion, the teen answered, cautious not to take sides. Aha! Kataise roared at the two. It's good to see someone has some sense. Murayama just rolled her eyes, but Hanai forgot about the conversation the second Issei sat down. She didn't make eye contact with the boy at all, pretending to be lost in thought. Issei noticed this and looked at her with a deciphering gaze, trying to work out what was wrong with the normally bubbly girl. Hanai looked up to see him looking at her, not with resentment, but with worry, showing he cared for the girl. Eyes, you know what she is, right? Svarkova asked the child nervously, not sure of his answer. Yeah, I know Scarlet. She's a fallen angel. I knew when I first fought the group and remembered their scent. Issei told the being. But I don't care. She has done nothing wrong and I can tell she was made a fallen against her will. She became my friend, and stayed my friend when I became a devil. I will not hurt her. The teacher entered the class and the day started. Line break, sir. A nervous fallen spoke to his superior. Revis Hyodo's son is alive, Ayan and co. The superior fallen stopped what he was doing, his anger growing with each passing second. Well, why hasn't he been killed yet? Kokebiel questioned, through gritted teeth, trying to control his anger. Well, Narkov's group failed the first time, and Donasik did kill him. Well? Speak up. The fallen soldier shook with fear at his boss. Well, a devil reincarnated him. Kokebiel just sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. And there's more. He has a sacred gear. The foot soldier didn't get to see his boss's reaction as a light spear was sent through the messenger's head. Kokebiel was shaking with rage. He should be dead. I shot down the plane with him and his parents on it. He should be dead. If the child was alive, it only spelled problems for his plan. He was the son of an ultimate class devil, and had a sacred gear. He could only imagine how powerful he was. Line break. Issei finished his class and was on his way to lunch with the trio, as Kataise and Murayama continued their earlier argument, with Issei between them. Hanai lagged behind, still pondering in her thoughts. Issei dropped back a little and walked beside the fallen. She hadn't even noticed him before he talked to her. Are you okay? You've been spacing out all day. Issei inquired. She jumped at his close proximity and blushed, before showing him a well-hidden fake smile and a nod. But Issei saw right through it. It was the same smile he had on his face every time someone talked to him after the crash. You know, you can talk about the issue. That's what friends are for, right? Issei comforted the girl. Her heart jumped at that. She hated herself at his remark, knowing she had to kill him, now that Kokebiel knew the boy was alive. He told her she had to do it that night or he would kill her. I know Issei-san, but this matter should be kept locked away, she confessed while looking down. The two were silent as they walked through the hallway. Eyes, he said simply. She looked up at him in confusion. Call me Eyes, it's what my parents called me. The boy explained. A small twinge of sadness hit her as he talked about his parents. Are you sure? She knew he was sensitive about his parents, so she had to make sure. Yay, I want you to. Oh okay, Eyes. Issei smiled at that, thinking it put her to rest. But it only made her worse. They reached the cafeteria, got their lunch and sat down at an empty table. Rias and her peerage also sat at the table, to Issei's happiness, and to Hanai's worry. Rias knew the brunette was a fallen, but she was Issei's friend and she hasn't caused any harm, so she let her pass. Hey Eyes! Rias exclaimed, happy to see her lover. Kataise, Murayama and Hanai sat in a row respectively, with Issei and Rias next to them, and Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko facing them. Rias fed Issei some food, which he blushed at. The others weren't so happy though. The trio was annoyed she stole their crush from them. Akeno was slightly sad that Rias got Issei before she did. Kaneko looked neutral, but was slightly jealous at the show of affection. Kiba, on the other hand, was happy for the two, as they both deserved happiness in their lives. After Rias fed him some more, he turned to her and she blushed, a shiver snaking down her back at his gaze. He slowly leaned in and kissed her slowly, which she melted into and moaned lightly, so only her love could hear her. After about 10 seconds of uninterrupted kissing, they broke, both panting and blushing slightly. Issei looked around and noticed everyone was staring at them. All the girls looked jealous, even the normally stoic Kaneko. Kiba just chuckled lightly at the crowd staring. Sorry, I don't know what came over me, it's just, you are so beautiful," he confessed, his ears reddening. Rias just blushed heavily and kissed him on the cheek. Her heart did a flip as he said that. Her love for him growing each day. She wanted him to compliment her more, but the bell rang and they had to part. On the way to class, the three girls walked in silence, even Hanai forgetting she had to kill him. They were too annoyed about the sudden show. Once in class, the rest of the day started. At the end of class, Issei volunteered to clean up the class and such. At the end of his work, the sun started to set, and he made his way home. He walked through the empty streets of Ko, before deciding to take a detour. He walked through the park, before he found his way to a fountain. He heard the rustling of feathers and a few, long, black feathers dropped in front of him. He looked up to see a fallen, but not just any fallen. It was Hanai. Eyes. I'm so sorry that I have to do this, she told the boy below her. She was crying heavily, tears streaming down her face. She was in a skimpy outfit, not well suited for battle. It was only a leather strip, reaching from her shoulders, across her massive breasts and across her womanhood. Please. Forgive me," she muttered, and his draconic hearing allowed him to hear her. She didn't want to do this. She summoned a light spear in her hand and launched it at the boy. It caused a big explosion, but she had a barrier around the area, so no humans could enter. She put plenty of power into it so she could kill the boy without any pain. He deserved a quick death over agonizing pain. Once the explosion happened, she cried out in pain. She had just killed her friend. A shy and innocent boy who only wanted friends. A boy who had so much pain in his life, but he held no anger to anyone. From her crying, she couldn't hear words being said. Balance breaker, elemental armor. Balance breaker, elemental armor. Before she could react, a figure leapt out of the dust and flew at a breakneck speed towards the girl. Time seemed to slow, as she thought it was her last moments alive. She closed her eyes in fear. The figure reached her. But it didn't attack. She opened her eyes to see a face looking back at her. Issei. He didn't look at her in anger or resentment, only showing care in his eyes. His arms were wrapped around her body as he held her. She was frozen in shock, before breaking down and crying loudly in his arms. She almost killed him. Issei just floated back to earth and held her for some time as she let out her tears. When she stopped about 5 minutes later, she was scared for her life. I'm so sorry, eyes. I was awed. Issei just tightened his grip on her. It's not your fault, Hanai. I know that you were a fallen, and I know you didn't want to kill me. I'm sorry to make you scared. Issei reassured her gently. She started to cry again at his forgiveness. He was a great person, and she felt safe in his arms. She found herself very tired from using so much power in one throw, and nodded off in his arms. He just chuckled lightly before he headed home. Line break. When Issei let himself into his house, Rias was cooking food for him and was about to greet him, before her jaw dropped and ran to his side. Oh my gosh, eyes. Are you alright? Rias fretted, seeing blood on his face. His mask took the brunt of the explosion, but it still hurt him slightly, not that he cared. I'm fine, Rias. Honestly, just a small cut. He reassured her with a small loving smile, which she became entranced by, then she snapped to her senses. How did this happen? Her eyes wavering over the unconscious fallen in his arms, she started to get angry, a red aura covering her. Rias. Issei said softly, and Rias instantly calmed down. She didn't want to attack me. She was crying the whole time, and when she tried to shoot me, she was heartbroken. It wasn't her fault. Issei explained to the red-haired beauty. She was in thought for a moment, before she nodded with a small smile on her lips, to show she believed him. He sat the girl down on his sofa and went to go clean up himself. Just after Issei left, Hanai started to stir, and sit up, to only realize she didn't know where she was. Then, the memories came in. She started to tear up, before looking around and seeing Rias watching over her. She was instantly scared and her breathing increased rapidly as she tried to explain herself. It's okay, Hanai. I said you didn't want to kill him, and I believe him. I don't care that you are fallen as long as I's is safe. She warned the fallen. Hanai just sat in shock, as the Princess of Annihilation let her live when she attacked Issei. Hanai just nodded weakly to the girl, as Issei came downstairs. Ah, Hanai, you're awake. Issei greeted her with a warm smile. She blushed at this, then she saw he was holding a towel to his head. She gasped knowing she did this. She weakly stood up and wobbled over to Issei as he caught her and steadied her. Hanai lightly pulled away his hand and covered a gasp escaping from her mouth, and she started to tear up, knowing she hurt him. She put her hands to the side of his head and Rias got ready to attack at one wrong move. But even the heiress was amazed at what happened next. 2 silver rings appeared on her index fingers on each hand, and emitted a faint green glow. Issei's cut healed rapidly, leaving only the blood as evidence that he was cut. Twilight healing. Rias mumbled slightly. Hanai nodded slightly and checked his head again. Once she saw he was fine, she sat down again. Wow! Thank you, Hanai! Issei exclaimed gratefully. She looked at him with wide eyes. He thanked her after she tried to kill him? What is this boy? Issei, I'm so sorry about earlier. I had to kill you. I was ordered to and he told me he would kill me if I didn't. Hanai blurted out suddenly, feeling a rush of emotion. Issei just smiled slightly. He just hugged her lightly for a moment and whispered in her ear. I know. I'm not angry at you. It wasn't your fault. You're safe here. No one will kill you on my watch. No one. Issei promised to the girl as she felt so happy. She hugged him back for a moment before they broke. Rias smiled at her pawn. Her life for him growing more at his forgiveness. He told Hanai to spend the next few days here, as he wanted to keep her safe. He would protect her, even at the risk of his own life. He would save her. Well, I know, shit note to end on, but school starts up tomorrow and I have to go to bed early. I honestly didn't know where this chapter was going. I just wrote what came off my head. Feel free to leave ideas in the reviews to help speed up the updates. It really helps anyway. If you like this chapter, review, favorite and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. First, previous ch7 of 19 next.